Okay, we're ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. What are we doing?
This is where the rubber meets the road because this is episode 1.
Are you ready to record episode 1?
Well, I pushed the button.
You pushed the button? You didn't tell me you pushed the button?
Oh, I pushed it.
I wish you'd push my buttons.
Gina, listen, this is the episode where...
I got you tongue-tied.
This is where we're supposed to introduce us to people, and you can't start so quick.
You can't even talk right now.
I mean...
Should we start over?
No, we shouldn't. I mean, let's just rip the Band-Aid off, I guess.
Oh, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. Hold on tight.
Here comes the Riveted with Chris and Gina. Oh boy. Okay, so
Ooh, what a way to start.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, here we are in our flying cloud Airstream on a very, very sunny day, very hot day.
Yeah. This is episode 1, and
all right, just so everybody knows, I got Chris all twisted and tongue-tied right off the bat this morning. So he's having a moment. Let's give him a moment.
We try to prepare. We try to be precise. And then as soon as I push the red button, she starts babbling and getting me off track.
Hey, you shouldn't talk about buttons.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So everybody, we are going to introduce ourselves because this is the first episode of our podcast. We're going to tell everybody about, a little bit about our backstory, and then kind of transition how we became Airstream owners and our life since. And we got a lot to talk about, and we believe that we're probably going to do a 2-parter. Like this will be part 1, and then
I think a 2-parter would make this an easier conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we don't want to bore anybody. It's not about being bored, right?
Yeah, it's not about being bored, and we don't want you to be bored in the first.
Please don't be bored.
2 minutes and 29 seconds. So, yeah, we hope that you'll
just hang in there with us.
Yeah.
Just hang in there. We'll get there.
So you gonna start?
Sure. I'm Gina. Who are you?
Listen.
All right, I'll start. He doesn't know what to do at this moment. He's still thinking about the intro. So I am Gina, and Chris and I have been together for 33 years. I hope I'm correct on that. 34 years?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's a long time. So we've been together 34 years, happily married. We have a beautiful, amazing daughter and granddaughter. And I originally owned a holistic healthcare center way before holistic healthcare centers were a thing. And Chris, you want to talk about what you used to do?
Well, sure. We are originally from North Carolina, and born and raised there. We did take a quick jaunt to Las Vegas for a year or two, and then to Texas for exactly 1 year. And then, but other than that, we've lived in North Carolina, and so that 34 years, if you see a picture of us and you do the math based on our picture and that kind of stuff.
I don't think we should go there.
Well,
I don't think you should go there.
I'm very proud of it.
I bet you are. Maybe we shouldn't go there.
No, we're going.
You didn't tell me you were going to go there.
I told you before I pushed record that.
Is this the Band-Aid?
No, it's not the Band-Aid.
Okay.
So Gina and I got together whenever I was 16, and then we got married when I was 18.
Dun, dun, dun,
and
dun.
She's a couple years older than me, not much.
Not many.
But it is, we think it's become one of our most unique aspects of us.
I think in all of what you're talking about, I would really like to know what a picture would have to do with this. Because you started that out with, if you see a picture of us, does that mean I look much older than you?
No.
You look much younger than me?
No. I think what I meant by that was...
I think you're digging a hole.
No, we both don't look the age that somebody would be together for 34 years.
Oh, we don't?
No. we look younger than a couple that would be together for 34
Oh, that was a good answer.
Yeah, that's
Just letting you know, hey, everybody, that was a good answer, wasn't it? He
It was.
backpedaled just a little bit, but he came out ahead.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
I try.
Mhm.
I can spin
You can spin it.
a little bit. Well,
All right, move on.
okay,
Tell us
I'll move
about
on.
you.
So anyway, we had a wonderful life there in North Carolina. My background has been in some form of sales most of my life. I sold boats for a lot of years.
We lived on a lake there in North Carolina called Lake Norman,
Right.
and I grew up on the lake there. And then Chris and I lived there for several years and
Yeah.
enjoyed boating.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the tie-ins to us being drawn to Airstream is one of the boat brands that I sold was a brand called Cobalt boats, and they're built in Kansas, and they're respected as being a really high-end, top quality sport boat from about 20 to 35 feet and long history of quality craftsmanship. And when we started shopping and discovered Airstream, we could see a lot of the same characteristics. And so it just drew us to the Airstream brand just because of kind of our past history of being around Cobalt boats. And so that kind of, but when I sold boats, that was almost 15, 18 years before we got into Airstreaming. So it still was inside of me. So
Wow, time flies, doesn't it?
time does fly. Yeah. So, so I sold boats for a while, and then I also traveled as a regional sales manager in the fire equipment industry, and that travel got to be extensive, and I was gone from home all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, and it was not fun travel; it was business travel, and so
Don't let him fool you. He had fun. It wasn't all just business.
well, maybe, but but it was.
I mean, it's hard work going to the Florida Keys, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I set a lot of cars on fire.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Part of our sales demonstration was to set things on fire, and that was a lot of fun.
That was fun. I got to attend one of those, and it was amazing how much heat there was. And just, we kept having to back away, and back away. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So did that, and then finally just got burnt out.
Oh,
I
did
didn't
you
get
work
burnt
hard
out.
on that one, or did that just come to
It
you?
just came to me. I didn't get burned up. I got burned out.
Burned out. Well, it wasn't the fire industry that burned you out. It was all the travel.
Yeah, it was all the travel.
It was all the airplane flights and being away from home.
Yeah. So I decided to leave that, and then we said, well, let's just take the holidays off, and then I'll do something different at the beginning of the year. This was 2016, and during the holidays, it was nice and cozy in the house and cold outside, and we start, playing on the internet and thinking about maybe buying a camper and stuff like that, and
Well, can I interject there for a minute?
Sure.
It wasn't like we had never camped or RV. I grew up camping in RV, and I think you did too with your family some, didn't you?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like in a little Class C or something, but
My extent of RVing was my dad had a little Class C, and he would take it to places where he and all of their friends could party, and me and my stepbrothers had to be trapped inside the RV, and we could not come outside because there was debauchery going on outside.
oh, that's how adults are, you know.
Yeah, so that was my extent of RVing.
Yeah, but yeah, you guys went to racing, the Bronco racing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like off-road racing. He was into that, and we would go to those kind of places and get all dirty and,
And so Chris had a 66. We're getting off topic, but I'll come back. Chris had a 66 Ford Bronco, and when we got married, and God, that thing was fun. As our daughter would say, let's take the lid off. Let's take the doors off.
Yeah.
And we had so much fun in that. But let's go back to RVing. So I grew up RVing from tenting as a young child, basically every weekend, to we went to a pop-up camper, where the sides come, the top raises and the 2 beds come out on either side. We did that. And then they bought a travel trailer. And I don't remember the brands of any of these, but then they bought a travel trailer. And then about the time they went from that to a Class A, I had already moved out of the house, and Chris and I were together and stuff. But we enjoyed using their travel trailer. They kept it down at Myrtle Beach or somewhere in that beach area of South Carolina, and we could just call up the campground and they'd pull it out on the site, and we would go enjoy the weekends too. But
back in the good old days.
Back in the good old days. Now it's so busy you can't do that anymore, or not as much. But anyway, so when we were sitting there that winter, bringing this full circle now.
Well, it just, you go from looking at all the cool pictures and stuff online to actually going to a dealership and looking at RVs for the first time. And the first RV we looked at, the first dealership we visited, was an Airstream dealer. It was Out of Doors Mart in North Carolina. It was one of the oldest Airstream dealers in the country. And, we walked in, and I'm the type person that when if I go to a car dealership or any kind of dealership, I don't just browse and try to keep my distance from a salesperson. We walked right into the showroom and said, "Hey, we're here. We would like to look at some Airstreams." And the gentleman that helped us took us outside, and the very first Airstream that he showed us was ultimately the model that we ended up buying. We didn't buy that one, but we walked into a Flying Cloud, 30-foot
rear
bed, queen bed in the back, and
actually, I think the one he showed us had the twin beds in it, didn't it?
No, it was a queen.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember.
But we walked into it, sat down on the couch. He cracked open a couple windows, and so
I thought you were going to say cracked up for a couple beers. I was like, was I there?
No, not that time. But so that was the first floor plan we saw, and then obviously looked at a lot of others and
RV shows.
Yeah, we did all that kind of stuff, and we and then looked at other brands of travel trailer. We already had a truck to be able to tow a trailer with, so we were really only shopping for travel trailers. We kind of deviated for a short period of time and looked at some Class C's, but we decided to stay on a travel trailer. And so just from that first dealership visit, we had what we saw with Airstream in our mind, and then everything else we saw
couldn't compare. I mean, there's some nice RVs out there. Don't get us wrong. I mean, there are really nice RVs out there, but for our style, and we live very simply, I guess. Minimally, yeah. We try to be minimal in our footprint and stuff, and so it just, everywhere we went, everything we saw, we just couldn't get the Airstream out of our head.
Well, one of the things that we noticed when we looked at others was, at this time, this was late 2016, early 2017, was a lot of the insides of other travel trailers tried to look like somebody's living room. And what we really liked about the Airstream was it looked and felt like a camper.
Yes.
And
well, let me interject right there. What he means by living room is, the dark wood, big recliners or big couches, and, the big screen TV. And so it's all the comforts you would have at home. Not that we're opposed to that, but we wanted to feel like we were in a camper, and that we were traveling in a camper instead of taking it home with us, basically.
Yeah. So the thing that probably solidified us on an Airstream 2, and it was just timing, and it wasn't even on our radar map, but we had to go to Tampa, Florida in January of 2017 for another reason. We had family down there that were doing an event, and we went down to Tampa. We drove, and as we're driving into town on I-4 there, we passed the Tampa RV Super Show. We didn't even know that it was going on that weekend.
Our radar for RV shopping our shows wasn't there yet. We had not put that radar up yet.
But we saw that it was going on as we passed, and so we went and did our event, and then we ended up extending and staying another couple days and went to that show 2 full days. And at that particular show that year, and possibly most all the other years too, Airstream had a huge presence, a huge booth indoors. Lots of pretty much every model that they make was on display. Factory representatives were there. We spent pretty much the entire 2 days in that booth, or we would look at something, leave the booth, go to look at another brand and compare and come back. And so those 2 days at that show convinced us that what we wanted to buy was an Airstream.
I have to interject here just a little bit about the Tampa RV show, because if there's anyone listening who has not been to that show, it was our first time. This was in January of 2017. And we pulled up, we walked up to the front door, and there's this huge tent right outside the door. And it had all of these little scooters in it. And the first thought that went through our head was,
You got
this,
tent?
I am. Okay. So, I mean, we're ripping Band-Aids off here, right?
Yes, okay. All right.
So, the first thing that went through my mind and Chris's as well was, maybe we're too young to be at an RV show. Like, maybe you this is only for older people to come to. And, we love that they offered this for people, right? And we just said, rent me everywhere. So we walked on past it. And of course, the Airstream dealership was right there on the left. And then I think on the right was like Prevost. Yeah, Prevost. And so we're walking around all this, and then we see that there's a back door, and we go out the back door, and we think, oh, this is going to be fun. And we walk, and then this little tram comes by, and we did hop on it one time, and we get way out in the back 40, and we're like, why didn't we rent one of those scooters? Now we understood why the scooters were there. They were for anyone and everybody who wanted one to zip around all of the RVs. I mean, there was thousands of RVs there. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah. And the number of scooters were crazy. Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah, that was fun. Anyway, Loved it. Next time, I'm renting a scooter.
You're not renting a scooter?
I'm renting a scooter. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Hot Florida. I mean, even in January, it was hot. Mm-hmm. We're on the asphalt out there. I'm renting a scooter. I might even get me a little umbrella to put on top of it.
Okay, whatever you want to do.
All right.
So yeah, that show was, definitely pivotal. And so then we come home from that and do a little bit more detailed decision making. And
so as you'll learn with Chris, and the more you hear him talking, he's very analytical. He is a detailed man. And he will research the hell out of something before he takes the step to purchase.
I'm a smart feller.
Oh, yeah, a fart smeller?
I'm a fart smeller. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
But I mean, you got to, especially on something like this.
Yes, it's very important.
It is. Gina wanted to have a really light color interior, and the only color interior that they had in stock was a darker brown, and But we found one exactly like we wanted, and it was down in Mississippi. And so we were shopping for that one too, and also trying to see what the North Carolina dealer would do. So anyway, to make a long story short, and again, this is 2017, that the dealer in North Carolina ended up allowing us to order a model exactly the way we wanted. And we worked out a good price, and the price was similar to the one down in Mississippi. But what was fortunate about it was when it came in, it was serialized as the next model year. So we placed an order in March of 2017.
That's correct, March.
And we received it on what date, Gina?
June 8th of 2017.
Yeah, on June 8th, and it came in as a 2018. So think about
Boy,
that.
did we get lucky.
Anybody listening to this podcast that has gone through shopping and buying an Airstream in the past several years, and the length of time and the how long it takes to get one. So yeah, we ordered it in March, and it came in June.
Yeah,
and
I think we ordered it.
Model.
I think we ordered it somewhere around the middle of the month, like the 15th or the 17th.
Yeah,
so basically, right at 3 months, and we had it.
Yeah, it was. Hearing the stories of what's gone on the past several years as they were struggling with supply chain stuff, and then the high demand of people purchasing Airstream, and their backlog of orders and the wait times, we feel so fortunate.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep. And so it's
funny. Can we talk about the pickup of it?
Yeah.
The delivery. So we got the call, it was there, and we were super excited to go and get it. And my dad has always loved Airstreams, and he's like, well, can I go with you? And we're like, sure, come on. So he rode with us. We went up to Greensboro, and we went through the delivery process, right? They like walk you through everything and show you how to use stuff. And I have to tell you, I watched them put the steps down on that Airstream once, twice, 3 times. Come on, Gina, it's your turn. And I'm like, I was so terrified. I just knew I was going to smash my finger or something. It was really funny. Out of everything on the Airstream, I was most terrified of pulling the little lever for those steps to fall down. But I did it. It was super easy. And I laugh at myself now to think, why did that bother me so much? But I guess I'd never seen it worked that way before. Everything that we'd done before was just a fold up one time and it was done. But what a remarkable experience to go through. We did everything, owning, how to hook up stuff. I mean, they were very thorough there, and we had a good time.
Yeah, it was most of the day. And so that was June 8th. Yes. And then I forget what day that was on, middle of the week.
It was a Thursday, I think.
Yeah. And then just a few days later.
Nope. Very next day, June 9th.
Well, yeah. I mean, we took our first trip and
our shakedown trip.
Yeah, shakedown trip. Mm-hmm. And we went down to the beach. And so it was one day later, and stayed for a long weekend.
We did.
And that went smoothly, no problems, anything like, nothing.
No, it was fun.
Yeah. And then we came back and went on another little trip up into the mountains.
Yes.
And on that trip, our second trip, got a flat tire. And fortunately, it was not on the road. We picked up something and the tire leaked down while we were at the campsite. And so we had to deal with that on that first trip.
That's the second.
Or second trip.
That was the second trip. Yeah. So we were fortunate, as Chris said, to see it before it got to where we couldn't handle it. So we did have that easy access to fix the tire at that point.
Yeah. And so, after that, we go back home and we settle into to getting ready to go on a summer trip. And we didn't really have a destination. We just decided we were going to head west, and we were also able to bring our granddaughter along with us. And so we had the camper loaded, truck loaded, had everything we needed, and set out for the west. And
we really didn't know how far we were going to go. We just we
said we wanted to go to the Pacific Ocean.
That's what we said, but we didn't know, because we were told that our granddaughter had to be home in about 3 weeks or so, because she had school, of course. And we started out. Our first site was in Tennessee, right? And from there, we're not the best planners, and you guys will learn that along the way about us. But we just like to go. We'll get to the end of the road. You want to go left, right, straight? What are we doing? But we ended up going across to St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
And then we went north up to South Dakota, and then went across and did some national parks and and stuff with her. And 3 weeks went by, and we were in Wyoming, I think, and we get a phone call from our daughter, and she's like, so what are you doing? And we're like, well, we're RVing across the country. Well, where are you? Well, we're in Wyoming. You haven't made it to the Pacific Ocean yet? And we're like, no, like it takes time to do this. And she's like, well, my daughter's got to be home for school. And we're like, when? And she's like, well, next week. She starts school next week. So we had to cut our trip just a little bit short. We didn't make it to the Pacific Ocean with her. So
we only made it to Old Man Kelsey's Ocean.
Oh, of course you'd say that. Okay, all of you Andy Griffith fans, you know exactly what he's talking about.
We crossed over Old Man Kelsey's Creek, and we got to Old Man Kelsey's Ocean.
We did. Yeah. So we jumped down to Salt Lake City real quick and flew her home. And when I got back, I just went for one night. And when I flew back, and you went to the Airstream dealership there too in Utah while in Salt Lake, didn't you?
Yeah.
I don't know what for, but you went by there while I was gone. Anyway, when I got back, we got into the truck, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to go north into Idaho, and I want to go over to the Grand Tetons. And it's always been a wish that I've wanted to go to Jackson, Wyoming. And so we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so here's the thing about us not planning and us not really, we had a fun trip. And when she got back from taking her home and we decided to go up, we were looking at the dates, and this was in
early August
or right late July, early August. And we realized that the total solar eclipse of 2017 was happening.
And I think that was like August 21st or something.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd be in Washington by then.
We weren't sure. Yeah. So the line of totality went right through Grand Teton National Park and Jackson Hole, Wyoming area. And so when we discovered that and we were looking at our timing, we're like, oh, well, we don't need to go there. It's going to be mass chaos. So
yes, but I twisted your arm and your leg and everything else. And we went.
Yeah.
We stopped in Idaho for a night or two, and then we went across the mountain. Well, actually, we didn't. We went around the mountain.
Yeah.
And we pulled into Jackson Hole, and we went up and found a wonderful campsite up in Kelly, which is just at the base of the Grand Tetons. And we were there for, I think we reserved 3 nights there. And then we were going to go on up into like Montana and go across and hit Washington. We were going to visit some friends in Washington. And
like the plan was to get in and get out before the eclipse.
Yeah, just go and enjoy that area for a couple days.
Because from what we were hearing was that the National Guard was being called in. The crowds were going to be crazy. The roads were going to be gridlocked, and so we were like, well, we want to see the area, but we don't want to be part of that. So that was
we wanted to get in and get out.
Yep.
And so we were sitting out by the camper one evening, and this gentleman walks by with his dog, and he speaks to us, and we strike up a conversation, and he moves on. Then we go to take the trash out, and we're walking around the campground towards the dumpster, and we come across this really cool tripped out van, and Chris can probably explain the van better to you, but we're walking by it. The guy had done it all himself, and we're really looking at it, holding this bag of trash, of course. And Chris is like, come on, let's go take this. We'll come back. Well, about that time, the man came around the corner, and I started talking to him. So Chris went on and took the trash, and by the time he walked really not that far and back, I had already met both of them. Were sitting at their campfire with a glass of wine in my hand and cookies on the fire, on the open fire. She was making cookies. He's like, how did you even manage that? But we met this wonderful couple, and we chatted with them for a little bit and got to know their story. And we invited them to a campfire at ours the next night. And the gentleman that we met walking his dog, him and his wife. And sitting around that campfire, the gentleman asked us, he says, "So what's everyone doing tomorrow?" And we said, "Well, we're leaving. We're going to head north. We think we're going to, go back over into Idaho, go north, and maybe go across to Washington." We hadn't decided. And the couple that we met with the van had said that they were headed to Montana to visit some friends. And this gentleman came up out of his seat and he said, "What? You got to be kidding me. Do you know where you are?"
He basically said, "No, you're not leaving."
Yeah, he did. He said, "You can't. There's no way." He said, "This is too epic of a time. You cannot leave there." And he proceeded to tell us that he was a retired astronomer from Bryce Canyon, and him and his friends and people from NASA and all of these amazing people he was name dropping that I can't remember were on their way there for the eclipse, and that we were in the totality line right there in the campground for the longest time, supposedly, of the eclipse. Now, we hadn't researched it. We didn't really know. We were just going off of what he said. So he was so adamant about us all staying. So we went up to the office and see if we could extend, because, they do like a 14-day limit out there.
First come, first serve.
First come, first serve, but it's still a 14-day limit. And it just worked out to where we could stay one extra day from the eclipse.
Yeah, so we decided to do that. And this campground is Grovant Campground right there in Kelly. And most of their loops are non-electric loops. But there is one loop for sure that's got electric only, no water, no sewer. And we were able to grab an electric site and could stay the full time. And our friends did as well. And we're so glad we did. It was absolutely life-changing experience.
It was.
The eclipse that just happened recently was amazing as well. For us, this one was so cool, being right there with the Tetons in view and how the sky changed. And it was just over the top.
So what we did was that morning of the eclipse, we all took our chairs and stuff out to this big open field, and literally the backdrop was the Tetons right there behind us. And I say behind us, we were facing it, but to see the eclipse, we had to turn our back to the Tetons for the sun. And we had our, those zero gravity chairs that you have that you lay back. We were laid back in ours with our little glasses on. We had a bottle of champagne. We were just sitting there waiting. And the eclipse happened. Well, as it was starting, there were pronghorns out in the field, these little bugs that click like that. You remember? I can't remember the name of them. These little bugs that click, they were just hopping around and making their noise. It was just beautiful, beautiful. And then the eclipse starts to happen and everything gets quiet. And then when it's a full eclipse, it got cold. We were in t-shirt and shorts and we got cold.
We'll talk about cold in a minute.
Yeah, it was really chilly. And we popped our champagne and people were taking pictures everywhere. There was the biggest camera lenses I've ever seen in my life there, along with telescopes and lots of people. But it wasn't crowded like they had thought it was going to be. And then, Chris, you had a moment when the sun started to peek out again, and you just happened to turn around, and what did you see?
Well, you could see like a sunrise on the Tetons.
The very tip, right?
Yeah.
There was still a little bit of snow on the top.
In August, and
it just glistened. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was over the top. It was totally life-changing. From that point, we were absolutely hooked. We were already hooked, but that was like our turning point on becoming just hooked as RVers. And
well, that's really the spot where it's the first time we heard, we wish we would have been able to do something like this when we were your age.
Right. And
I think we heard it there first, and then from then on, we just kept hearing it over and over and over.
Yep. The other thing about that location that it was the first time I really noticed it. And then obviously Gina forced it too. But
I forced it?
Yeah,
Ooh.
is in the back of our Airstream, the queen bed, it points north and south on the camper. And so we have a window right above our heads. And one of those nights we were there, I woke up in the middle of the night, and from just laying on my back in the bed, I can look up and look out that back window vertically.
Like up towards the sky.
Up towards the sky, yeah. And the stars literally looked like they were coming in the window. They were so bright and so big. And so it was awesome. So I woke Gina up, and that was my first mistake. because
it was a mistake in a good way.
It was, but so
don't make these people think I'm mean to you.
You're not mean, baby. So she sees it, and she just has a flip out. And so
I'm like, get up
yeah,
right now.
She's like, get up, let's go out. And I didn't want to go out because it was cold. And
it was in the 30s.
Yeah. Can you believe that? And that's like, it was hard for me to understand being from the East Coast. Is like, it's August, mid-August. It should be 95 degrees with high humidity and
80 at night.
80, yeah, at night. And we just weren't used to being at that that kind of high elevation and those nighttime lows.
Yeah, we're definitely flatlanders.
Yeah, but so we buy this Airstream in June. We've only had it a few months throughout the summer. We're traveling all across the country trying to get plugged in so we can get the AC turned on, and then we're out in Jackson, and we're running the furnace in August.
Yes. It was a blast.
It felt so good.
But you got sidetracked. So
yes.
I did convince him to get up, and of course there's trees all around the campground. So we got in our truck and we drove out, and of course this was at 2:00 in the morning. We drive out to the main road where the field was that we watched the eclipse, and we got out of the truck, and what did you see?
We saw the Milky Way. And it was
bright,
clear, crystal clear Milky Way. It was unbelievable. Never seen the Milky Way.
Millions of stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was.
You don't see that on the East Coast very often, and just because of the light saturation. But it was. We just kept having these phenomenal experiences. And
then from there, we headed west through Idaho and went to this amazing national park called Craters of the Moon National Park.
If you've never been there, go check it out. It's like nothing you've ever seen.
And then kept heading west, and we had a friend that lived on the east side of Seattle that we decided to go visit.
Ithaca, I think.
Yep. And we parked on the street in front of her house and made all of her neighbors mad. But they still, and here's the thing about the Airstream, is like they didn't want us there, but they thought, man, this is a cool trailer.
They did like it.
Yeah.
And we parked literally on a hill. Remember trying to level the Airstream?
It was hill. So yeah, we did that. And here's another thing about us, like at the time being so new that we weren't planners and we weren't really paying attention to what we were doing, is we were going there to visit her, and she was going to take us around and show us Seattle. And then from there, we were going to head south down through Washington and Oregon. And she's like, if you're this close, you need to go out to Olympic National Park. And we're like, well,
why? Like, why?
Yeah. And so she's just like, oh, it's epic. You've got to see it. It's amazing. And it wasn't even on our radar map. And so we decided to go out there and spend several days. And that, was our first time putting our rig on a ferry. So we took a ferry over to Port Townsend, and
so if you've never done that before, don't panic. It was super easy to do.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
So we do that, and then go out, and again, just the kind of experience we had in the Grand Tetons. It was a similar, amazing, eye-opening, crazy, wonderful experience in Olympic National Park.
I mean, who knew that there was a rainforest in the U.S.?
Well, I'm sure somebody did.
I know, but I didn't.
We didn't. Yeah.
Sounds like we didn't get out very much, but we did.
Well,
But anyway, we discovered some really cool sites, met some wonderful people. Of course, we met Airstreamers out there that their Airstream was smaller than ours, so they could park out there. Ours was a little bit too long.
Yeah,
for
we
some of
struggled.
the campground.
we did struggle finding a campground, but we kind of made a base there in Port Angeles, and then we just drove and toured the whole park. And
We took the big ferry over to Victoria, Canada,
yeah,
and went out to Neowa Bay.
we went out to the farthest northwestern point in the lower 48, and it was awesome, unbelievable. It looked like we were walking through,
A fairy tale.
absolutely.
Ferns everywhere. There was moisture. They did have a like a little boardwalk. It was very narrow, but like a little boardwalk on the ground because the ground is so moist. So they did have that up there so that you could get out to the end. And what's so funny is that the whole time we were doing this, Chris thought we were going to end up on the shoreline.
Yeah, like we're from the East Coast, so when you go to the beach on the East Coast, you're at the beach. You're right at the ocean, at the sea level, and so
You walk right out into the sand.
yeah, so we get on this trail. It's a 1 mile long trail from the parking lot to the end point, and we're walking, and it's slowly going down grade through the woods, and there's places where we had to go down steps and hike down a little bit. It was a hike. I mean, an established trail, obviously, but it wasn't.
It was easy enough for anybody. To
Yeah,
do it.
sure.
Yeah.
But it was going down the whole time. And so in my mind, I'm just thinking, well, when we get down here, we're going to be on the beach. And we get out onto this point, and we're a few hundred feet above the ocean.
Yes.
And it was over the top.
The rocks everywhere. There was huge boulder type rocks. There was seals in caves. And those little birds, those black birds, I can't remember the name of them. I'm sure someone on here knows what I'm talking about. And then there was this little tiny island right off the edge of the coastline there with a lighthouse on it. And it was pretty beautiful.
It was stunning.
It was peaceful. It was beautiful. The waves crashing against the rocks were amazing. How the water would splash up so high. It was another one of those experiences that we would not have seen had someone not mentioned. And that's one reason after this trip that we did, we said, we're just not ever going to plan, because we just kind of go as we meet people and talk, and they say, hey, have you done this, or go see this? While you're here, go do that. That's how we like to roll. Yeah.
Had we had a reservation somewhere and she gave us the recommendation to go to Olympic National Park and we could not go because of that reservation, we would have missed out on an experience that was over the top.
Absolutely.
And these couple, the Eclipse experience we just described, this Olympic National Park experience we just described, all of that is within our first few months of having an Airstream, and it was pretty major experiences. And we had we not bought an Airstream and had it behind us for these travels, we wouldn't have experienced those things.
Right.
And that's, we're going to talk about this more and more. We mentioned it in our trailer of the podcast, but that's one of our main goals of this podcast, is to let people hear some of these experiences and how the Airstream itself helps to enhance those experiences. And so being able to hear stories from others, maybe you aspire to take a trip like that but haven't yet, and then you hear someone explain and describe some of the experiences that they've had, it will give you confidence and excitement to definitely go on that trip. And so that's one of the exciting things we're looking forward to about this podcast, and
about sharing it with you guys.
Yep. And it's not, this episode is to obviously introduce us and let everyone know our kind of past history with having an Airstream, and we're not done by any means, but we wanted to make that point that we hope that the listeners realize that we're not trying to let this be a travel journal. We want to invite others to come on, have conversations about the experiences that they've had in their life because of using an Airstream as their accommodations and camper, and what that can bring you. And the more that gets out there to the world, we think will cause others to realize that they need to consider adding it into their life if they can. It's such a unique vehicle, such a unique camper. It's iconic, and we love ours. And just these first couple stories, we're just scratching the surface.
When you're out on the road, I hope that you're making connections and meeting people, because like the couple that we met in Jackson Hole that had the tripped out van that he had done, it was really cool meeting them there, and we exchanged phone numbers. And after we left Olympic National Park and headed south going down the coastline, and we did lots on the way down, but once we knew we were going to cross into California, we made a call to them and said, hey, we're headed down into California. You want to meet up? And he says, why don't you just come to my house in Santa Barbara? And so we did. And we could do that because why not? And so we get there. He literally lives at the harbor in Santa Barbara, right up the hill, and in a house. And we parked there. We stayed a couple of days. We, reconnected with them, heard their stories. They told us other places to go while we were there. So making those connections, whether it be in the campground or if you're out taking a hike and you run into someone and start talking to them, making those connections is important. And we hope that on this podcast, with the connections of people that we've met along the way, and as they share their stories, we hope that you feel connected to us and to them. And if you have an Airstream, we have an open invitation to contact us. Let us interview you and find out what your story is about.
And we hope you weren't bored.
I hope not.
And we hope you enjoyed hearing us.
Hope they weren't bored, not offended, loved what we had to say.
I didn't say any curse words this time.
You didn't?
No.
Oh.
I don't think I did. Why would they be offended?
Well, I said I hope they're not going to be offended.
No. And we did, yeah. So anyway, we'll get used to this. We'll get the hang of it. I mean, it is brand new.
Hey, but you know what you can do? You can follow us so that every time we release one new episode, you'll be the first notified, and then you can come and see what we're doing next or who's on and have some fun with us. Yeah,
we have a link in the description of this episode that is our Linktree episode that's got all the details about us in that one link. So click on that and learn about us that way. And we will see you on episode 2. And I had fun. I hope you had fun.
I absolutely had fun. We hope all of you did. Mm-hmm.
Yep. We'll see you on episode 2, everybody.
All right. Have a great one. See you down the road. Just got to sing to that, babe.